Welcome back to the channel. Today's news will cover Korean news in intermediate English. I picked trending topics from all over Korea, and we're going to talk about them one by one. Before we get started, let's get something delicious to drink to keep our throats nice and ready to go. I got some mango tea today. It's the first time I'm trying it, but thought I'd give it a shot. Ooh, it's kind of sweet, actually. Not bad. I didn't expect it to be sweet. All right. Today's news, we have several stories. Our top story will begin with Naver and Dunamu. I'm sure you've heard about this. There's a major business deal taking shape between Naver, which is Korea's largest tech companies, or one of the top companies, and Dunamu, the country's biggest cryptocurrency operator. The two companies are preparing a comprehensive stock swap, which means Dunamu shareholders would receive new shares from Naver Financial, and Dunamu would become a 100% subsidiary under Naver's financial unit. We'll talk about that word later. In return, Dunamu chairman Song Chi-hyung is expected to become the largest shareholder of Naver Financial. For Naver, this deal is seen as a way to gain a new growth engine, which is a new source of business growth. Although Naver still reports steady profits, its growth rate has slowed sharply in recent years. Search, commerce, fintech, and content, Naver's main business areas, are no longer expanding as quickly as they were before. In the old days, Naver was necessary all the time, but these days, not so much. Naver's operating profit ratio has also fallen compared to earlier years, and the company's stock price has decreased from 400,000 won range to around 200,000 won range over the past 5 years. By acquiring Dunamu, Naver would gain access to a company that earns over 1 trillion won per year in operating profit. Thanks to its dominant position in cryptocurrency trading, Dunamu has also over 5 trillion won in accumulated cash reserves. Naver hopes this powerful cash flow will help it fund future investments, including large-scale AI development, and stabilize its long-term growth. For Dunamu, joining Naver offers stability and the chance to expand beyond Korea. The cryptocurrency industry has been facing strong regulations, slow legal reforms, and uncertain future markets. Being backed by Naver's ecosystem may help Dunamu enter new fields, such as payment services or international markets. However, experts are puzzled about one thing. Why is Dunamu, which is much bigger in revenue and profit, choosing to become a subsidiary rather than forming a lighter partnership? Many analysts say the real answer may lie in the personal decisions of the founders. Naver's Lee Hae-jin, some sound, did you hear it? And Dunamu's Song Chi-hyung, who both have a history of making bold, long-term strategic moves. Some critics also warn that combining fintech and crypto could increase regulatory risks. Talk about that later as well. Especially if the two companies move into stablecoins, which is a type of cryptocurrency designed to have a stable value. Financial regulators may tighten rules if the partnership expands too quickly. Even so, many in the IT and finance industries believe this deal could reshape Korea's digital economy. So there are 5 words I want to go over. The first is subsidiary. The pronunciation is a little bit strange. Subsidiary. It's a company that's completely controlled by another company. A growth engine is something that helps a company grow in the future. Naver hopes Dunamu will help it grow in the future. Operating profit, the money a company earns after subtracting basic business costs. It's a company version of net income. Regulatory risk is the danger that government rules will cause problems for a business. This is especially true in AI and also in crypto these days. Stable coins are a currency designed to keep the price steady rather. All right, story number 2, also a big story. Samsung's restructuring its leadership. Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Jae-yong has carried out a major leadership reshuffle after his Supreme Court acquittal. Instead of a dramatic generational change, Samsung chose a strategy built on two goals. They said, number one, they wanted to strengthen top-level technology talent. And number two, keep the organization stable during a time of global uncertainty. Samsung announced only 4 major promotions or role changes, far fewer than last year's 9. But even with the smaller scale, half of the newly appointed leaders are top technical experts, showing Lee's strong belief that technology is the strategy. One of the most notable moves is Samsung hiring Dr. Park Hong-gun. This is a Harvard University professor as the new head of SAIT, the Samsung Advanced Institute of Technology. Park is known as a leader in nanotechnology with achievements like he was a top graduate in Seoul National University. He also has a PhD from Stanford. He was the first tenured professor at Harvard, and he also got global recognition in quantum computing and neuromorphic chips as well. Some observers even mention Park as a potential future Nobel Prize candidate, which would be huge for Samsung if it happened. Bringing him into Samsung signals Lee's long-term plan to secure next-generation technologies that will decide the company's future. Samsung also promoted Yoon Jang-hyun, the head of Samsung's venture investment, to become the new CTO of DX, which is Device Experience Division, and heading of Samsung Research. He previously led software, IoT development, and investments in AI, robotics, and biotechnology. Samsung plans to apply AI-based features across all of its products, phones, TV, appliances, etc., to sharpen competitiveness in a crowded market. The 2 top leaders of Samsung's largest divisions will remain, however. Jun Yong-hyun, head of the DS, which is Device Solutions Division, continues to manage memory and semiconductor businesses. Under him, Samsung reorganized its memory division and stabilized the large HBM, high bandwidth memory, business, an area Samsung wants to lead before the next semiconductor boom. Ro Tae-moon, head of the DX division, remains in charge of MX, which is the mobile division, as well. After the sudden death of former Vice Chairman Hang Jong-hee, Ro worked as the acting head and helped calm the organization in a time of turmoil. Now fully confirmed, he will continue strengthening the Galaxy ecosystem, connecting mobile, home electronics, and smart devices. But another important development is the retirement of Jung Hyun-ho, long known as Samsung's number 2 figure. His departure comes as Samsung upgraded the long-running business support task force into a permanent organization called the Business Support Office. The new office, led by Park Hak-kyu, will coordinate strategy, finance, and organizational decisions for Samsung's electronics businesses, similar to the old Future Strategy Office, but officially more limited. Analysts say this change signals a return to a more centralized decision-making structure now that Lee Jae-yong's legal issues have ended. As a quick aside, please forgive me, I decided to put the names in English. It was a mistake. It's much harder to read the English versions. All right. Lee Jae-yong's global momentum. After being cleared of charges, Lee has accelerated global activities. He confirmed major deals with foreign partners, including securing HBM4 memory supply for NVIDIA, closing a 23 trillion won AI chip contract with Tesla, and signing a letter of intent with OpenAI for large-scale HBM supply, meaning they have the intention of working together, a kind of promise. Industry watchers say that these moves show Samsung is building a long-term plan to dominate the AI chip, semiconductor, and next-generation device markets. All right. The words from this story, we've got about 5. Reshuffle. To shuffle is to mix cards. To reshuffle is to do it once again. So if you reshuffle a company, you're changing the positions of the leaders or the roles in the company. Succession is the process of choosing the next leader or succession. Strategic is planned for long-term goals. I'm sure you know the word strategy. Strategic is just the adjective. Innovation is new and creative technologies. Think innovate or invent. New. Stability is something that's not changing, staying steady, like we talked about before. All right. Our next story is about banks. Korean banks are once again shutting down major loan programs, causing frustration and anxiety among customers who need financing for housing or daily life. As of November 24th, KB Kookmin Bank has stopped accepting all new applications for mortgage loans, jeonse loans, and unsecured loans, both online and in person. Hana Bank will also limit new mortgage and jeonse loans starting November 25th, today. Although Shinhan Uri and Nonghyup have not yet closed their loan applications, experts say they may soon face a flood of loan requests and could be forced to halt lending as well. Why is this happening? The main reason is government limits on total household lending. If a bank exceeds its annual loan growth target, financial regulators reduce the bank's lending capacity for the next year, a penalty banks want to avoid. By November 20th, the combined household loan increase at the 5 major banks had reached 9.69 trillion won, far above their combined limit of 8.07 trillion won. Removing Nonghyup, which is still within its limits, the other 4 banks exceeded their target by over 32%. Banks say the situation became harder to manage because of repeated changes in real estate regulations this year, including the sudden June 27th policy, which I'm sure you heard about, which cut household loan targets in half for the second half of the year. Strong demand is making the problem much worse. Banks report that demand for unsecured loans has been rising sharply. As investment markets, including stocks and gold, go up, more customers are borrowing money to invest. Unsecured loan increased by 1.38 trillion won in November alone, compared to a decrease in September. Home buyers and people who need financial support are panicking. On real estate forums, user wrote things like, "I regret not applying earlier this year," or "I was ready to accept high interest rates, but now I don't even have the chance to apply." This shutdown is not new. Last year, banks also exceeded their loan targets and had to stop lending late in the year. One bank had set its loan target too low, so low, in fact, that it exceeded it by nearly 7 times. 7 times. I had to read that 3 times. Banks have since tried to improve risk management by monitoring monthly loan trends and limiting branch-level lending, but the end-of-year shutdown has repeated anyway. Banks will soon begin planning their loan strategies for next year, and the Financial Supervisory Service will coordinate new rules based on those plans. Analysts say banks need to redesign their risk management because hitting the loan limit too early and shutting the doors at the end of the year has become a recurring problem. Words from this story, we have shutdown, which is to stop services. Household debt, we can guess the meaning. Debt that is held inside of your home. So anyone in your family that lives in the same house. Quota, not to be confused with quote. A quota is a limit or an allowed amount of a certain thing, like a quota on students or a quota on money or a quota on, like when you buy electronics, you can only buy 1 or 2. There's a quota. Regulation is a rule set by the government. And panic, of course, is sudden, strong fear about anything, something that jumps out and scares you, or panic about markets. Back in the banking and life insurance related things, Hanwha Life has bought back the remaining shares of Hanwha Life Financial Services, making it a 100% wholly owned subsidiary once again. The company purchased the final 11.11% stake for 128.5 billion won, regaining full ownership after temporarily giving up part of the shares to outside investors in 2023. Analysts say the move is strategic. Hanwha Life wants to secure future dividend income, cash payments from a subsidiary's profits. So when a subsidiary makes profits, it gives a dividend to the owner of the subsidiary. This happens in banks as well. If you have certain kinds of investment or certain amounts of savings, and strengthen its long-term financial stability. The life insurance industry is under pressure from new accounting rules such as IFRS 17, which is a global insurance accounting standard. These rules require companies to hold more capital, especially through the policy surrender reserve, which is money insurers, they have to set aside a certain amount to refund clients who cancel policies early. This is required by regulation. Because this reserve is considered a legal liability, meaning it is a risk, a legal risk, it reduces the amount of profit that can be used for dividends. Hanwha Life's capital ratio, called KICS, which is the Korean Insurance Capital Standard, is expected to be around 157%, below the 170% level usually needed for strong dividend payments. So by owning Hangumseo completely, Hanwha Life can channel future profits directly back to the parent company, improving its ability to pay dividends later. Today we're in financial news quite a lot in Korea. So Hangumseo has grown rapidly in recent years. Its estimated corporate value has jumped from 650 billion won at launch in 2021 to around 1.7 trillion won today. It already paid out its first dividend last year. Hanwha Life received around 12 billion won. The private equity investor Korea Investment PE received 1.5 billion won. Hangumseo earns stable profits through GA commissions, which are fees from operating a large general insurance agent network. Its business model provides strong, predictable cash flow that is useful for a parent company needing steady income. This year, a company reported 801 billion won in cumulative profit through the third quarter, and analysts expect over 1 trillion won in full year profit again. By regaining full control, Hanwha Life plans to streamline decision-making and strengthen its sales strategy. With 100% ownership, they can coordinate product planning, marketing, and sales more effectively across all channels. The company's spokesman said that the acquisition will be positive for Hanwha Life because the Hangumseo's strong profitability and future growth potential. That lots of jargon in that one. I apologize. Let's look through some of them. Subsidiary we talked about before. Dividend is money that a company gives to shareholders or a parent company, which is a shareholder. Liquidity, how easily money can be used. If your money is in real estate, it doesn't have much liquidity, but if it's in a bank, it's very liquid, flows easily. Cash cow, very useful word, something that brings steady money. We use this in everyday speech a lot. I hear it a lot. Valuation, this is a corporate jargon for how much a company is worth, or even real estate can have a valuation. All right, story 5. This one's a little bit sad, but we're out of the financial woods, okay? Vietnamese police have launched an investigation after the body of a Korean man was discovered inside a large blue suitcase in a residential neighborhood of Ho Chi Minh City. According to local reports and the Korean consulate, the body was found on the afternoon of November 23rd. A security guard and several pedestrians noticed a strange smell coming from the suitcase and called the police. When officers arrived, they found the man dead and partially decomposed. This means starting to decay, to fall apart. The victim has been identified as a Korean national, but his name has not been released. 2 Korean men are being questioned now as potential suspects. Witnesses said 2 men were standing near the suitcase shortly before the discovery. When people began to gather, the 2 men quickly got into a taxi and fled. Vietnamese police later detained 2 Korean men believed to be connected to the case and are now questioning them as possible suspects. Because the body was decomposed, investigators are trying to determine the exact time and cause of death. Police have blocked off the area and are reviewing evidence from nearby buildings. The Korean consulate in Ho Chi Minh City confirmed that the victim is Korean and said it has contacted the family already. Officials also stated they will provide consular assistance, which is help and support given by the Korean embassy or any embassy to Korean citizens or whichever citizen. For example, I can get consular assistance from the American embassy here in Seoul. So we have a few words. Suspect is a person that the police think did a crime. So a murder suspect is a suspect, a person we guess or think did the murder. Investigation, of course, I'm sure you know this word. Police study what is happening, or people can study what is happening. Decomposition is when the body breaks down after death. Like for example, when you have vegetables in your house for too long, they begin to decompose or wilt or rot. All of these are similar meaning words. And of course, the embassy, the Daesagwan, is the government office in a foreign country. All right. Let's get off the sad news a little bit. Take a little sip, little refresher. Yeah, very sad news. All right, let's talk about something a little bit more close to home. The Korean government is making the biggest reform in 76 years to the national civil servant on-duty system, the 당직 제도, which was first created in 1949, if you can believe it. The changes will expand work-from-home duty shifts, allow combined duty teams across multiple agencies, and introduce AI-based call handling systems. The new rules were announced by the Ministry of Personnel Management. Well, we can talk about that sometime. On November 24th, and will begin test operations in early next year in 2026, with full implementation planned for around April. The reform will apply to 1,171 government organizations and around 500,000 civil servants each year. So some key changes. Work from home duty will be allowed. Previously, agencies had to get approval from higher ministries before letting employees handle duty shifts from home. Under the new rules, agencies can decide this on their own, as long as they have proper systems in place, such as remote security equipment, communication networks, and monitoring systems. There will be no need for separate duty rooms at agencies with 24-hour situation rooms. Let's break that down. Some government offices already run 24-hour monitoring centers called situation rooms. Since these rooms already function like duty rooms, the new rules allows the two to be merged, letting agencies use staff more flexibly. Good. Shared duty shifts between nearby agencies is also something new. Currently, each agency must have at least one person on duty every night. Under the new system, neighboring agencies can combine their teams and share 1 to 3 duty officers. For example, 3 officers could cover 8 agencies inside the Daejeon government complex. AI calling handling system has been introduced. Agencies that receive many phone calls at night or on holidays will start using AI support. Regular civil complaint calls will be automatically sent to the national hotline system, the 국민 신문고. Emergency calls will be forwarded to the 119 fire medical or 112 police duty officers will handle urgent or important issues directly. I combined the 2 words. So some expected benefits. The Personnel Ministry expects the reform to save 16.9 to 17.8 billion won per year in duty-related expenses. Also reduce unnecessary post-duty rest days for about 446,000 civil servants, and free up an estimated 3.56 million working hours annually. And officials say the change will modernize the outdated duty system, improve efficiency, and reduce the burden on public workers while maintaining essential government services. So we've got 5 words from here. Reform, to reform, is to re-change something. Similar to reshuffle, but this one is about making an improvement or a change to a system rather than reshuffling people. Telework is work from home. Television means far vision. Telephone means far here. Telework means far work. Easy. Integrated system, one combined system. Integrate means to make one. Pilot program, this follows a similar thing to pilot episodes of television. This is a test program. Automation, automate, means to make something automatic. Machines do it. Like an automobile automatically moves. A car automatically moves. All right, let's move on to our next story. Back on the ferries. Investigators have revealed shocking new findings about the Queen Zenobia II, the large car ferry that ran aground near Changsan Island in Shinan County on November 19th. We heard about this a few days ago, about how the first mate was on his phone, but there's more bad news. According to the Mokpo Coast Guard, the 60-year-old captain had never once entered the ship's bridge. The bridge is the jotashil. It's like the control room where the ship is steered. During more than 1,000, you didn't hear that wrong, 1,000 previous trips through the same narrow waters. Under Korean maritime law, captains are required to personally navigate narrow routes called pilotage waters. Pilotage waters are narrow areas that require special caution. In Korean, I think it's hyapsuro like area, very thin. The captain is now under investigation. 7 ferry employees were questioned as witnesses, all confirmed that since the ship began operating in February of 2023, the captain left navigation entirely to junior officers and never appeared on the bridge when passing the accident area. The Coast Guard believes the captain failed his legal duty and has booked him on charges of gross negligence causing injury. I looked this one up. In Korean is 중과 실치상, and violating the Seafarers Act, which is 산원법 위반. It's hard to explain exactly without legal explanation, so we'll just use Korean this time. A VTS controller, which is a vessel traffic service operator, the person who monitors ship movements, is also under investigation. Investigators say the controller did not notice that the ferry was off its normal route before the grounding. The controller claims the route deviation alarm, the 항로 이탈 alarm, has been turned off. The Coast Guard is now trying to determine when and why the alarm was disabled. The West Sea Regional Coast Guard explained that alarms for small ships often ring too frequently and disrupt monitoring, which may be the system was turned off earlier. But this is still under investigation. Simulations show that the grounding was preventable. A simulation by Mokpo Maritime University showed the ferry needed to stay at least 500 meters away from the island to avoid impact. If the ship failed to change direction at least 190 meters before exiting the safe route, the accident could not be avoided. Experts said that the exact turning point can depend on the judgment of the officer on watch and the VTS controller's experience. On watch means to be the person who is currently observing or monitoring, or being the one who keeps track of information. For example, someone who guards a door, like guarding a palace or guarding against North Korea, they are on watch. However, in this case, because the ferry's speed and path changed from normal patterns, the controller should have noticed the danger. It seems that the real problem is the distracted crew. The Coast Guard concluded that the first mate and the helmsman, we talked about before, the crew member who physically steers the ship is called helmsman, were using their phones and not paying attention at the time of the accident. Both have been detained on charges of gross negligence causing injury. The Queen Zenobia II had 267 people on board when it left Mokpo and ran aground at 8:16 p.m. Fortunately, all passengers survived, but investigators say the accident was entirely preventable. Here's some words here. We got wheelhouse. The wheel is what we turn, and the house is the area that is around the wheel. So it's the control room. Grounding is to go from the ocean onto the ground. Whales can do this. They can ground themselves. Some orcas can ground themselves on purpose to catch food. Negligence is not doing your duty carefully. You can be negligent with children. You can be negligent at your job. You can be negligent about your house, etc. Simulation is a computer test of a situation, or it can be a real-life test as well. Radar is a machine that finds objects with signals. Like LiDAR is with lasers, radar is with radio. All right, moving on. This one's a little bit scary. All of them have been a little scary today. Korean police and cybersecurity experts are warning about a sharp increase in online sales of student and parent personal information, especially from wealthy districts like Gangnam. Take a little drink here. How are you guys doing today? I know the week just started, but I hope it's going well. All right. When asked about reducing ROK and U.S. joint military exercises, Lee said, "Such decisions depend on future conditions. If a strong peace system is firmly established, some drills may not be needed." He also noted that U.S. President Donald Trump dislikes costly joint exercises, but emphasized that South Korea must ultimately take responsibility for its own defense. Lee said that Korea's defense industry has grown remarkably and now holds a strong competitive edge. He expects major results soon in overseas weapons sales and cooperation projects, such as the joint development and production with other countries. He also revealed that Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi privately suggested that Korean companies take on the 3 to 4 trillion won expansion project for Cairo Airport and possibly operate the airport afterwards. Lee said earlier preparation and deeper cooperation might have made even greater results possible. So we have border, the MDL, which we talked about, is the military line between Korea and North Korea. Retaliation is an action taken after an attack. It's like revenge, but specifically in some attack. Deterrence is power to stop attacks, to deter attacks. For example, using SAM missiles to launch down other incoming missiles. This is a deterrent. Provocation, an action that causes conflict. Yeah, we have a lot of those in the world these days. All right, now, in a bit more of an interesting story, a 66-year-old Japanese man secretly won 600 million yen, about 56 billion Korean won, in the lottery and hid it from his wife for 6 months while living a luxurious double life, before finally giving most of the money up for his family's future. The man, known only as A, to keep his privacy, is a retired employee of a major manufacturing company. He lived modestly in Tokyo with his wife, surviving on a monthly pension of 300,000 yen. His strict and frugal wife controlled their finances closely. She didn't allow him to drink beer and insisted they only buy cheap old cars. A's daily routine included buying several 300 yen lottery tickets after breakfast. One day, he was told he needed to go to the bank and soon learned he had won an enormous jackpot. He said the amount felt unreal and even frightening. Because his wife was extremely strict with money, he decided not to tell her. Instead, he pretended he had only won 5 million yen and used that excuse to make small home improvements. In secret, however, he bought a luxury car, stayed repeatedly at high-end hot spring resorts, and traveled around Japan, spending 18 million yen in only 6 months, which is still, he has so much more money left. To avoid suspicion, he parked the new car far away in a separate lot, wore old clothes, and limited contact with people he knew. But the double life soon brought guilt and loneliness. While traveling, he saw families enjoying time together and began thinking about his own. He remembered painful memories of his father who suffered after divorce and bankruptcy, and realized the hidden money was creating emotional turmoil. A said he would have been proud if the money were earned through hard work, but the money gained by luck made him feel unstable. Eventually, he met with a financial planner and decided to put about 500 million into insurance, naming his wife and children as beneficiaries. He said he wants the money to protect his family after his death. The story caused heated debate online, with many commenters saying that sudden wealth can lead to identity problems and emotional conflict rather than happiness. A little side story. In the US, most lottery winners have a similar problem, except they usually go broke. Somehow they are able to spend all the money very quickly. I can't remember the statistics now, but it's very common. So some words from this. Winnings is the money that you win from something, or a prize, like a car or something. Frugal, useful word. It means careful not to spend money. For example, if you want to have kimbap, you cannot get the expensive one, get the cheap one. If you want to eat takeout, we're going to do pickup because we don't want to pay the fee, and it cannot be fancy, like this kind of thing. We'll eat McDonald's dollar menu, like that. Windfall, very useful, is a sudden large amount of money or a sudden large change in your income or fate. Like, oh, we had a windfall. Like wind in your sails, kind of. Inheritance is the money you give your family or receive from an older family member when they die. Or you can receive it before they die too. They can give it to you directly. Identity crisis is confusion about who you are. A little bit more sad news. Byun Woong-jun, a well-known TV announcer from the 1970s and 80s here in Korea, who later became a 3-term lawmaker, has passed away at the age of 85. He died on the night of November 23rd at Himmin Hospital in Jaeongdong, Seoul. His funeral is being held at the Asan Medical Center. Born in Seosan, Chungcheongnam-do, in 1940, Byun began his broadcasting career in 1963 at the Central Broadcasting Station, the predecessor of KBS. He moved to MBC in 1969, where he gained nationwide popularity hosting programs such as Myeongang Undongho, a cheerful sports variety show, Yukwehan Changbekjeon, both beloved entertainment programs in the 1970s and 80s. Byun entered politics in the mid-1990s. He joined the United Liberal Democrats, which is the English words for the Jaminrong, in 1995. Milyon, is that right? In 1995, and was elected to the National Assembly the following year, representing his hometown district of Sosan-taeyeon. He went on to serve 3 terms in the 15th, 16th, and 18th National Assemblies. His funeral procession will take place on the morning of November 27th. Some words from this story. We have legacy, which is what a person leaves behind, whether that be your family, your story, your money, what you did in life. This is what's left behind. This is your legacy. A veteran is someone with many years of experience in any field, military, education, business, anything. Broadcasting, to cast is to throw. Broad is over some bandwidth or over some distance. TV or radio work, basically. Condolences is an expression of sympathy, or it's a kind of sad feeling about some sad event. Usually someone's passing. All right. Government and national pension services move to defend the won. As the won and dollar exchange rate climbs towards 1,480 won, the Korean government and the National Pension Service, NPS, have activated a new 4-way coordination group to help stabilize the foreign exchange market. The Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health and Welfare, Bank of Korea, and the NPS held their first meeting and announced they will work together to support both market stability and pension investment returns. This signals that the government is considering restarting strategic currency hedging. This is a practice where investors sell dollars and buy won to protect against exchange rate loss. What is it? I looked it up earlier. 환해지. So why now? On November 24th, the exchange rate closed at 1,477.1 won per dollar, the highest level in more than 7 months. The rate started lower earlier in the day due to expectations of U.S. interest rate cuts, but reversed course when foreign investors sold large amounts of Korean stocks, creating demand for dollar repatriation. This is sending money back overseas. Because the high exchange rate is not coming down, the government is now preparing direct measures to reduce volatility. On November 24th, a search on major portal site brought up dozens of advertisements openly selling private data. One seller claimed to have thousands of records containing names, phone numbers, addresses, and birth dates of Gangnam families, priced at 600 won per person, which is mind-blowing. Some sellers even admitted without hesitation that the information came from recent hacking. These sales are happening mostly through Telegram and the dark web, which is, I'm sure you've heard, a website that requires special software to access. It's not just one website, it's hundreds of thousands maybe, making the transactions almost impossible to trace, very difficult to trace anyway. According to data obtained by lawmaker Jung Sung-kook, from 2021 to August 2025, schools and educational institutions in Korea had 317 data leaks, exposing more than 5.73 million pieces of personal information. The leaked data included student and parents' names, phone numbers, photos, bank account numbers, student grades, scholarship income levels, and these are considered the highest risk, by the way, sensitive information. Sensitive information is like 민감 정보? Yeah, like very easy, you know. Police warned that these databases are extremely valuable to voice phishing groups. In the past, scammers called random people, but now criminals already know the child's name, school, and family background, allowing them to create highly believable scams called scenario phishing, targeted fraud that uses real personal data. Some scammers even use AI voice technology to mimic children's voices when asking parents for money. A police official said that phishing groups are now building detailed scripts based on specific regions, especially Gangnam, where they can find high-value targets with plenty of leaked data. So, a little bit scary. I live in this area, so it's a little bit, I'm worried for my students. Anyway, phishing is tricking someone to steal money. We have a big problem with that here in Korea. Leak is when private information is, I hesitate to say escapes, though sometimes it can escape on accident. Database is organized collection of information. Impersonation, think about it. Personation, to become another person. Fakely, like by lying, pretending to be someone else. Sensitive data, we talked about before. Personal information that must be protected because it contains a lot of value. All right. All scary news, huh? During his flight from South Africa to Turkey after the G20 summit, President Lee Jae-myung expressed serious concern about the current state of inter-Korean relations. Speaking to reporters aboard Korea's presidential aircraft, he said the situation is dangerous and that accidental military clashes to fight cannot be ruled out. North Korea's unusual border fortifications. President Lee said North Korea has installed triple-layer barbed wire fences along the MDL, which is the military demarcation line, the border between the two Koreas, something it has not done in decades since the Korean War armistice. He explained that North Korea's idea of the border and South Korea's idea of the border do not match. North Korean soldiers sometimes move into areas they consider their own and then fire warning shots when they believe South Korean forces cross the line. Lee warned that North Korea is refusing all dialogue and contact, making the situation very dangerous indeed. Because if a sudden clash happens, there will be no clear way to solve it. However, we're still committed to diplomacy. Despite this concern, Lee emphasized that he will not abandon dialogue. He said relying only on a hardline policy would make things worse. Instead, South Korea must maintain strong deterrence. Deterrence is the ability to prevent attacks by showing some strength. 억지로, I think is how it's said, while continuing efforts to persuade North Korea to return to talks. Lee also commented on unrepatriated long-term prisoners. Okay, this is a hard one. Let's break it down. These are elderly North Koreans imprisoned in the South who want to go back to the North. Make sense? He said many are in their 90s and there is no reason to prevent them from returning to their hometowns. There's a very famous one recently in the news who wants to go back. The NPS holds 43.9% of its assets overseas, meaning it regularly needs to buy large amounts of dollars to invest abroad. This demand for dollars has been cited as one of the structural reasons the exchange rate keeps rising. Strategic hedging by the NPS would involve selling dollars when the won becomes too weak, buying won to reduce exchange rate pressure, and some analysts say that 1,480 won may be the threshold where the NPS begins hedging. Experts are divided about this. Using the NPS could help stabilize supply and demand in the FX market. When the pension fund signals hedging contracts, banks are required to sell more dollars, which increases dollar supply and can help lower the exchange rate. One economist said, if the economy weakens because of an unstable exchange rate, seniors' future income also suffers. So moderate hedging is reasonable. Critics warn, using pension funds to defend the exchange rate is a short-term fix, a 미봉책, that may harm pension returns. The NPS has followed a 100% open currency exchange, allowing full exposure to exchange rate changes, Hwan Open, since 2015, which research shows is more profitable in the long run. At Yonsei University, A professor said that stabilizing the exchange rate temporarily will not solve underlying problems like weak domestic demand and slow growth, and could even reduce pension investment returns. In our words for this, we have exchange rate. This is the value of one currency when compared to another. Hedge is to protect against risk. Volatility is fast or quick changes in price or value. You can also use volatility in emotional state to be quickly changing your emotion. Or in chemistry, something is volatile means it could change quickly, maybe explode. A fund is a large amount of managed money. An intervention is government stepping into the market. All right, we have a lot of bad news today. Let's end with some good news. In late 2025, the Smithsonian National Museum of Asian Art in Washington, D.C. opened a landmark exhibition called Korean Treasures, Collected, Cherished, and Shared. The show brings more than 200 works, including a dozen of Korea's highest-level cultural artifacts, designated national treasures, to U.S. audiences for the first time. Why does this matter? For decades, Korean art has often been showcased in Western museums as a side note to Chinese or Japanese collections. But this exhibition signals a turning point. Korean art is being recognized as a major independent voice in global art history. Scholars say this shift is decisive. The show draws heavily from the collection of the late Lee Kun-hee, one of Korea's most prolific art collectors, whose family donated over 23,000 works in 2021. It spans more than 1,500 years of Korean culture, from Buddhist sculptures of the Three Kingdoms period, gold-letter scriptures of Goryeo, to minimalist modernist paintings of the 20th century. Curators decided to present the works thematically, not just by date, so visitors can feel connections across time and context. For example, a 19th century painted still life shows scholars' objects, chekkado, and an elegant moon jar from the Joseon dynasty watches over a contemporary inkwash painted side by side. By doing so, the museum wants Americans who associate Korea mostly with K-pop, K-drama, and K-beauty to see a deeper cultural legacy, like we talked about before. As one director says, we're as fanboyish or fangirlish as anyone else with Korean popular culture, but it's also important our audience understands the deep wellsprings, origins, of creativity in Korean culture. This exhibition arrives at a moment when Korean popular culture is sweeping the globe. The K-wave is stronger than ever, but the show reminds people that Korea's cultural strength isn't only new media and entertainment. It's built on centuries of artistic tradition. The Washington Post calls it the biggest thing that's going to happen this decade in Korean art history in North America. For Korean culture heritage, this is more than just an art show. It marks the moment when Korea, long seen as a peripheral in the field of East Asian art, now takes center stage. You'll be able to find a heavy lion-shaped drum from a temple, resonant with sounds of ritual tradition, Joseon-era court portraits, contemporary abstract works that with Korea's traditional motifs, and one particular piece of Joseon court art is placed alongside a modern film's imagery influenced by K-pop demon hunters, showing how traditional motifs continue to shape modern Korean culture. Our vocabulary from this, we have exhibit. It's a show in a museum. Cultural heritage, traditions and art from a culture, something you inherit from your ancestors. Preservation is to protect and to care for. Artifacts are historical objects, and a showcase is to present something proudly, often as a centerpiece, a main art. All right, that has been the news for today, Tuesday, November 25th. I hope you had a great day, and I hope this was very informative. I hope your drink was nice and warm or cool and refreshing, whichever one you chose. Mine sure was. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. It really helps me know what you guys like. And I'll see you next time. Have a good day. Goodbye.